Hello and welcome to the Geeks Review. I'm Royce.
And I'm Joshua.
Later on today, we'll be talking about the new Batman animated movie, The Long Halloween Part 1. But first up, Black Widow, the latest installment in the Avengers series starring Scarlett Johansson. It's currently playing in cinemas and available to stream for an additional cost, $35, on Disney+. So, this is a prequel to the most recent Avengers movies, but it's set a short time after 2016's Captain America Civil War. Natasha Romanoff, our titular hero, is on the run, reuniting with her sister-in-arms Yelena, played by Florence Pugh of movies like Midsommar and Fighting With My Family. They team up to bring together their old family of Russian super spies. This includes Melina, played by Rachel Weisz of The Favourite and The Mummy, and Russia's answer to Captain America, the Red Guardian, played by David Harbour from Stranger Things. On their tail, however, is Taskmaster, a supervillain with the power of photographic reflexes, the ability to perfectly mimic anyone he comes across, who not only mimics the powers and movesets of our hero, but also classic Avengers like Hawkeye, Captain America, and even Black Panther. So, this has been a long time coming. It's finally out.
Yep, the COVID.
Quite long delay, and feels like it was released quite late.
Yes, I enjoyed the film, but I think they definitely missed their window with Black Widow.
Yes, because we won't talk too much about larger spoilers in regards to even the older films in case you haven't seen them yet. But yeah, I think if you go through them now and you went and checked this out, it would still be pretty nice.
Solid.
I did hear a suggestion in regards to the post-credit scene, which we won't talk about in detail. Imagine had that come out before Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
And you saw that, and that would have been like, wow, what's going to happen? But that leads into future Marvel things. I don't think you'd need to really be up to date with the Marvel stuff to watch this. It's kind of standalone.
You'd need to be up to date to you need to have at least seen Civil War.
Yeah.
Because this is almost directly after.
I think even then, though, it's very Jason Bourne, like, Bourne Identity, Ultimatum, all that.
Yeah.
I prefer Supremacy.
Hey.
Yeah. So I think even a non-viewer, if you were after some sort of, super spy, lots of exotic locations from Marrakesh to Siberia, this is a good movie to check out. And there's a lot of things in it, though, that are sort of, because it's quite grounded in comparison to Iron Man, to Avengers, to Doctor Strange, to WandaVision.
I don't know if Doctor Strange is quite grounded, if we're going to be honest.
Well, no, I mean, those were all quite fantastical.
Yes.
And this is quite grounded in comparison. So when something like, mind-altering, controlling pheromones comes into play, you sort of get caught off guard, or at least I did, where it's like, oh, wait, yeah, this is a world where Thanos exists, so that's not too far out of the realm.
Honestly, it's not too much of a stretch for my mind. Because, that's something that definitely felt very Cold War. Using pheromone psychological conditioning to create the perfect assassin, really.
Yeah. But yes, I'm talking about the film. What do you think?
I definitely enjoyed the film. I'm definitely not going to say there's much to crow home here. I do see that little bit of Marvel magic is back, but when it comes to certain things, I did walk away a bit disappointed, particularly with the twist in regards to who is the primary antagonist of the film. But I definitely was not left wanting when it came to the performances. Scarlett Johansson, Florence, and all that, they were doing great. I think the real person who steals the show for me is David Harbour as Alexei, aka the Crimson Dynamo in the comics / Red Guardian.
Yeah, all the performances are pretty great. I've heard some criticism about some, particularly villain-wise.
Yeah.
But I think there's a charm there to that performance. She reminds me a lot of Villanelle from Killing Eve, played by Jodie Comer. Yelena does. The same kind of morbid humour. The whole talk about the hysterectomy is really quite dark, but it's played in a really darkly morbid way, which they kind of have in common, those two characters. Although Black Widow, the Avengers superhero, sort of a lot more heightened reality than what Killing Eve is. But yeah, I kind of really liked everyone here. It's the first Marvel film we've had in 2 years, but we've had, other Marvel properties since,
we've had TV shows,
Captain America, Loki. And there's been a lot of people saying, these are going to burn out eventually. But I think, based upon the numbers, it's going pretty well so far.
Well, it's recording a 200 million, I think.
Yeah, which is,
Returns opening week.
considering there's a pandemic still going on.
Exactly. Seeing that there's a pandemic going on, factoring in people going out to the theatre to see this, and people purchasing it on Premiere Access, for a film that was delayed, what, 2 years to a year?
Yeah, 14, 15 months.
It's doing pretty well. Granted, personally, I think Black Widow definitely missed the window
Yeah.
with when we should have seen a Black Widow film.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the film for what it is, though I did go in hoping for a kind of a Cold War spy film.
Well, yeah, obviously it's modern age, and you've gone and got the intro, which is very interesting.
I loved the intro. I thought we were going to get a little bit more of that, see a little bit more of Black Widow's past, but hey.
Once we get over the flashback, it's kind of, all present stuff from then on.
The opening's haunting as well, yeah. With the cover of the Nirvana song. It's really quite different to what we've seen before.
And they do finally take moments in this film to actually sit down and let things sink in, have genuine moments. It's not just go.
There are moments I felt for the first half where it was almost non-stop action. Whether it was, Yelena and Natasha meeting again and they have a bit of a sparring match and you're not exactly sure what's going on there because it gets quite brutal.
Yeah, it does.
Followed up by a car chase, which is really sort of white knuckle time. When you've gone and got the villain Taskmaster driving an APC through the streets.
He's not driving it. He's he's at least in it.
Yeah, he pilots. You got a shot of him piloting it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that's quite intense. Yeah, this guy Taskmaster, just the move set, bringing out the shield, throwing it, and the arrows and the claws.
When Taskmaster is on screen before the twist is revealed, I genuinely enjoy the Taskmaster. Not to say that the twist isn't necessarily bad. I just love Taskmaster coming in from the comics because I loved Anthony Masters, the character, and when I saw him, I'm like, oh, yes, it's the Taskmaster, the man who can copy nearly anyone's moveset with his photographic memory and reflexes. The man who trains armies and all that for a price, and then they definitely live up to the Taskmaster is an intimidating villain.
Yeah, he's scary. There is a twist, and Taskmaster's actually got quite a lot of play recently. I mean, he was in the Marvel Avengers video game last year.
Yes.
As a villain that Black Widow fights.
He was also in
Spider-Man, PS4 and PS5 now. And I remember seeing this one and sort of thinking it's an interesting design they took, but it works on the screen. It works in motion, I feel.
Yes.
Looks fantastic. It's
a lot more... definitely a lot more practical with what they're going.
I mean, in the comics, he's like this skull-faced, sword
skull mask wearing, sword wielding, quiver wearing, bow and arrow holding,
cloak
shield,
and hood and all that.
Cloak, hood. He's strapped.
Yeah, and in this, he's got shades of like your Batman of recent years. Sort of the armor, a bit of Iron Man, bit of everything. He's sort of very technical and
definitely
advanced.
How it shows him, it definitely shows a person who's easy to adapt to any situation. That's what he does. He is an adapting villain. The only person he really can't adapt to is Deadpool. I originally thought they were going to use Taskmaster and for something like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or even in the Netflix Marvel series.
Taskmaster is a villain much like that. That would have shown up in a show like that. I mean, I've been looking through some of those TV shows which are sort of adjacent or tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You've got Cloak and Dagger, you've got the Runaways, you've got obviously Jessica Jones and Iron Fist and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And there are villains that showed up there, like Ghost Rider, like, I can't pronounce her surname, I can't remember it, but Nico, she shows up in the Runaways, and it's sort of like, I know that character.
Yeah.
And that sort of seemed to be the dumping ground for characters like that, but now Taskmaster is quite a prominent villain in this movie, Black Widow, which we're talking about now.
Yes.
But yeah, there is a twist, and this film, it's been a long time coming. People have been demanding this for so long, and then,
the demand went up the moment that DC did Wonder Woman, and it was very well received.
Yeah, because, I mean, Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, played by Scarlett Johansson, was the leading lady of these films.
She was. And she had appeared in Iron Man before any other film. Iron Man 2, to be exact.
Yeah. I mean, since then, we've had Ant-Man and the Wasp. We've had Obviously, Captain Marvel, supervillains like Ghost and Hela, played by Kate Blanchett in Thor Ragnarok. And, I mean, we just had WandaVision, which was the Scarlet Witch, leading the whole series, and various other female characters. So Black Widow...
That's more when I say they missed their window, because they've had, much like with Hulk, they've had Black Widow as a supporting character. She hasn't been... Well, she's been one of the main protagonists and main characters, but in more of a support role.
She works as a lead, though. I mean, Scarlett Johansson's been leading films for years now. But
I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with her being a lead. I'm actually quite fantastically amazed by her lead, by the lead that she was able to do. I just think this film shouldn't have been in Phase 4. I think it should have been a Phase 2 or Phase 1 at the earliest.
Yeah, I think if it had slot in, before Avengers Endgame and Infinity War...
Before they had even considered doing Captain Marvel. Because that was their first female solo lead film.
Yeah, and at that point, that was a bit of a hard sell. I mean, I really like Captain Marvel. Really like the actress. Some people, whatever.
Oh, I don't know the character, and I could really go either way with Brie Larson.
But with that, there was a totally new character brought in, and it would have made sense to have had like your first female lead to be a character who was pre-established, who's been there since the beginning pretty much. And I feel like, they did sort of mention that the Me Too movement had kind of an impact upon this film. I remember looking up the production, and it sort of talks about how New Line Cinema had the rights back in 2004, and it talks about that happening in regards to this film, which happens in the middle of the MCU, 16 years later, and it's kind of like, wow, that's a bit of a...
It's a bit of a jump, because where it takes place storyline-wise, it's almost a few months after Civil War, and it ends just before Endgame.
Do you think it impacts upon her, survivability? Because you kind of know that she's going to appear in later films. She can't die in this one. But I was still concerned for the other new characters who were introduced here, who were fun. Like, Alexei, Melina, Yelena.
I think the only one that I had the most concern for was Yelena, because I was quite interested in seeing where they were going to go. There was a little theory going around that Yelena was actually the widow we saw in Endgame and Infinity War.
Yeah, because, you're dealing with disguises and masks and all that sort of stuff. Every time they bring out that holographic mask, I'm like, that's too far. No, wait. Thanos, magic, this is that universe where that can happen.
Nanotechnology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sorry, Black Widow, we're talking about the twists and turns, and general consensus so far is that this film is a bit late, appreciate
but
it,
it's still
love
a good
it now.
film.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a personal thing.
Yeah, in regards to the twist, I think it's very thematically resonant and ties in a lot to the story they were telling.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's just as what I had gone in expecting and what I had received, I kind of went, oh.
Yeah.
That's a very Bondian twist now, isn't it?
Yeah. But like I said, the character of Taskmaster and all these other characters have had quite a lot of play in other media since. So
a lot of different other... Well, like most things, they change it all up,
Yeah. So we do have some Taskmaster goodness, which is sort of accurate and true to the comics.
Absolutely.
But I think this was a change which was nice, but it would be interesting to see. At least there's sort of breathing room that could bring back the other Taskmasters,
Well, I honestly think they did this in the sense of everyone's going to expect the other thing.
Yeah.
And the idea that I had going forward before I saw the twist was like, okay, so they're going to have it as this, where there's only, because every character in the Red Room, every widow is a female. So I genuinely thought, what if they made it that the primary antagonist was the only soul-succeeding male agent of the Red Room?
Yeah, which... It's all sort of laid out for you, and you don't quite realise unless you pay attention to the opening credits.
Yeah.
We're sort of talking a little spoilers now.
A little bit of
for the YouTube play.
Yeah.
When I saw Olga Kurilenko's name pop up in the credits, I thought, oh, wow, I didn't know she was in it. And it was about halfway into the film that I realised, hang on, she's not shown up yet. Who's she going to be playing? And I don't know if I'm just dumb, but I didn't realise it was going to be her under the Taskmaster thing.
They really did hammer home, what about the daughter? What about the daughter? Which, thumbs up, I guess?
Yeah, apparently it was her in the costume.
Yeah.
For a majority of it. And going back, I mean, knowing that it's Olga Kurylenko under a muscle suit inside the costume, that was really quite interesting to see the physical performance.
It was. They definitely had me going thinking that there was a man underneath the suit, and then when they finally revealed, I'm like, whoa!
Yeah.
Okay. Good twit. Good on you.
Yeah.
But, boo.
Yeah.
Lame twist.
Well, yeah, I think, like I said, it does tie in so much thematically to the Black Widow's being used, and this is his own daughter who's just being used as like a puppet,
Yeah.
But it does sort of, I guess it does sort of raise the question then as to like why they went to the effort of dressing her up as a man. Doesn't that then impede upon her movements? Like, imagine how effective she could be if she wasn't like swimming inside like a restrictive muscle suit and all that stuff.
Well, I guess it's more just to play along until we get to that little twist.
Yeah, it's as much for the audience as it more than it. So
it's a bit of a fan panda.
Yeah, but there is room for Taskmaster. I mean, she's still out there in the universe, but then again, there's other villains I like out there in the universe still, like Ghost, and I mean, Abomination, played by Tim Roth in The Incredible Hulk, is sort of finally coming back in She-Hulk and Legend of Shang-Chi and Legend of Shang-Chi.
I'm definitely looking forward to She-Hulk. I'm on the fence still with the Legend of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
It's a wordy one.
Yeah, it is a wordy one.
Yeah, but that would be interesting to see.
I am very much for Kung Fu, but She-Hulk is in my top 10 Marvel favorites.
Bit of, Marvel speculation here. It's going to be interesting to see how they actually do She-Hulk herself, as in regards to Tatiana Maslany playing her from Orphan Black. How far are they going to take the transformation?
Yeah, because there is a significant height difference between Jennifer Walters and the She-Hulk.
Yeah, so, I mean, the TV shows they've been putting out on Disney Plus, which She-Hulk's going to be, has really shown what they can do now. Yes. And especially The Mandalorian.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Disney's got the cash to throw at it.
Yeah. Are we going to have something like Endgame tier level Hulk, effects for this, or is it going to be more?
We'll have to find out, really. With She-Hulk, I'll wait and see how they go with the effects. I'm more looking forward to seeing if I'm going to get a lawyer battle between Jennifer Walters, either as the She-Hulk or Jennifer Walters, versus Matt Murdock.
Yeah, talking very briefly, because people keep saying, oh, that's doomed, the Netflix shows are no longer canon, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is no longer canon, and all this stuff, and I don't see why it doesn't need to be. I mean, it would be really quite insulting if they were to bring back a character like Quake or Daredevil and completely recast him. That would be quite insulting.
From what I've heard, Charlie Cox is coming back as Matt Murdock as Peter Parker's lawyer for No Way Home.
Well, that's positive, So...
But that was a rumour that I've heard maybe 2 or 3 times over the last couple of years.
Yeah. But I think it would be until, they do something like that.
Yeah. Until I actually see him on a photo from the set.
Yeah.
I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, they've got all this content there. They can just sort of say, well, we're not going to let it impede upon our thing if we're going to bring in, Ghost Rider. But it would make sense to bring in the actor they have to play that character and vice versa,
I would like to see a Ghost Rider show. That'd be actually quite interesting,
Johnny Blaze does exist within the universe, apparently.
Yes, they all do.
And, would you be happy with the actor? I mean, he was the Rev 9 in Terminator, the last one, Dark Fate.
I don't think that... Oh, you're talking about the one that they had in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah.
That was not Johnny Blaze.
Yeah, that was Robbie Reyes.
Yeah, that was the first... I would like to see Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider.
But Johnny Blaze does exist.
Yeah,
Get Nick Cage back,
No. I don't remember me wrong. I love the Cage Man, but not in Ghost Rider.
No.
Especially after seeing the headwear that he wanted to wear while he was doing the Ghost Rider scenes. That just...
I haven't seen that. We'll slap a picture up, maybe. YouTube version.
Yeah, YouTube version.
Do you have any final sort of spoilery thoughts before we get back to, vague talking and moving on to Batman?
Other than wanting to say that Marvel hates marketable what they deem unmarketable villains.
Well...
Because look at it. A lot of the villains who haven't survived are what have been deemed... don't seem to have much staying power in their mind.
Yeah, they kill him off pretty quickly. I mean, Hela is like an ongoing villain. Taskmaster is an ongoing villain.
Yes.
Ironmonger and all that stuff, and they just bonk him off.
Yeah, what seems to be the villains that don't have much marketability, because, the only villains that are really continuing at the moment are, Loki, Hela, to some degree, if she survived Ragnarok, that is.
Yeah, I think it's down to... I don't know, who knows with Cate Blanchett, she might just be one and done and moving on,
Yeah.
Because it's down to her, Taskmaster is one I'd like to see back, and I reckon they could do it where she sort of becomes like the mercenary.
Yeah.
And she is still going up against... Because watching recent Star Wars stuff, we've gone and had the reappearance of certain characters, and you kind of realise, like, oh, this character's a good guy, but then they come across your new protagonist, and you're like... Oh, hang on, this isn't going to go the way we thought, because they're both on sort of opposing sides.
I definitely do think with the post-credits that we are building up to a Dark Avengers.
Yeah, for sure. I expected more from her. What's her name? Valentina, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I expected more from her after her appearance in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Because that was revealed, like, she was going to appear in Black Widow first, and then this was meant to be the follow-up to that. So I kind of expected something more...
Well, I guess we can see her as the new Nick Fury,
the
gathering
Shadow,
together.
Yeah. I could imagine Taskmaster coming back, and she's like now working as a mercenary. She crosses paths with Peter Parker, and it would sort of be like a confrontation there. Or someone else, and it's kind of like, well, we know each of these guys' stories. Who do we want to see come out on top here?
Yeah.
And, I mean, like I said, there's other Taskmasters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The original Taskmaster could still be out there,
It still could be. I still have hope for Anthony Masters, but, I'm not going to hold my breath.
So, sort of wrapping up our final thoughts on Black Widow. I think this is sort of a return to form. I mean, especially after the bombastic, finale with Avengers Endgame. This is a much smaller scale, sort of Captain America, Winter Soldier vibes sort of deal. I reckon you could watch this even if you don't know the other films. If you're looking for something that's sort of in the flavour of like your Bourne Ultimatum kind of stuff, check this out. And it
definitely feels in the same strain as Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Maybe just a bit more localized.
I'd put it up there in my sort of top tier of Marvel films. I think it's one I enjoyed more than a lot of other ones, and I'd return to it, and I sort of have returned to it a bit, sort of in anticipation of this. But yeah, that's my final thoughts on Black Widow. So moving on now and wrapping up today's episode, we're going to be talking about the new animated Batman movie, The Long Halloween Part 1, which was released back in June, and Part 2 comes out in a week's time or 2 weeks' time.
Roughly.
From air date. So this is based upon a classic comic book written by Jeff Loeb, illustrated by Tim Sale.
Yes.
It tells the tale of Batman actually working as a detective. He's
not just going around and beating up thugs.
Yeah.
And then doing a little bit of detective work. There is a genuine mystery here.
There is an unknown killer who's going around and murdering mafia-affiliated people on holidays.
Yeah, mostly the Falcone crime family. The GCPD have dubbed the holiday killer as Holiday. It's going so far as to Batman's on the back foot trying to figure out who Holiday is. And this is the comic series where they finally evolved the Calendar Man into a serious villain.
Yeah, he's a properly creepy villain. Played by an actor, David Datsmaushin. Sorry, cannot pronounce his name. Terrible.
But he did a wonderful performance for the brief appearance that Calendar Man actually did have.
Yeah, he would probably have a more significant role in
Part
the upcoming...
2.
Yeah. So I read this, 7 years ago, and it did stick in my mind, mostly the art style, because the art style is wacky.
It is.
Animated one, though, it's its own unique art style, but it's not the same as the one in the book.
No, so that's where I've always had a bit of an issue with some of the DC properties where they've adapted a style and they've been sticking with it for the last couple of years. But now, here, they've done something radically different. I'm like, ooh.
Someone called it Archer Light. Because it's got that it's all cel shaded, or it's made to look cel shaded. It's all digital now. It's consistent and it's solid. It's not like the characters suddenly changed their look halfway through.
No, it definitely people look a bit more lifelike rather than square jaws.
Yeah, there's actual definition. I think the one character who's actually missing sort of detail and definition is Bruce Wayne himself. When he's out of the Batman costume, he sort of looks
Mind
a bit...
you, that's the point.
Yeah, that's true.
Mild-mannered billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne.
The design of Harvey Dent and his wife, Gilda, I just really love those. I liked Selena and Catwoman.
Yes.
Carmine Falcone looks great. Performance-wise, I mean, you've gone and got actors like Jensen Ackles from Supernatural, Josh Duhamel as Harvey Dent, Naya Rivera, who was from Glee. She tragically passed away last year. This was actually her final film role as Catwoman. She's great.
Oh, yeah. Top performances all around. Jensen Ackles actually brings his own uniqueness to the Batman.
I forgot it was him a few times, honestly.
I genuinely felt it was someone else. The only time I had ever seen Jason Ackles in a different DC-related film was Under the Red Hood as Jason Todd. And here, totally different.
Worlds apart, yeah. You could have them have like a conversation and they would sound like two completely different people.
Wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Wouldn't know that it's the same person.
Troy Baker returns as
Joker doing his wonderful Mark Hamill impersonation.
Yeah. I do have a thing to say about the performances, particularly in regards to the mob characters. I guess, obviously you've had so many mob movies over the years, like The Godfather,
They do feel a bit more characterized.
Here, I don't know. I was sort of getting a bit bored with this film until about 20 minutes in. It's kind of like the film forgot that music was a thing.
Yeah.
And doesn't have music. And it's like, what are you doing here, Catwoman? I'm waiting for you, Bruce. What are you waiting for? It's like so many pauses, and it's like this film is only 90 minutes long because they take like a 2-second break between each line.
Yeah.
And then I'm sort of watching, there's this chase between Batman and Catwoman, and there's just like nothing. It's just sort of awkward. There's like, and then the music kicks in and you get a bit of tension there, and it's like, yeah, finally this is starting to get a bit of life. Falcone I felt was missing. I've always sort of pictured like a, Frank Vincent voice, from Goodfellas. Go home and get your shine box, that guy.
Yeah. The
Visually,
Roman's always been a bit more of a gruffer, maybe a bit more of a younger Marlon Brando as in his role in The Godfather.
Tom Wilkinson played him in Batman Begins, remember?
Yes.
Yeah, English actor, but playing an Italian-American mobster. It did it well enough.
The Roman, from every iteration, he's always been an intimidating presence, but he's still very a charismatic person.
I remember it's his sister. She was like a Hulk of a woman in the comics. She was this massive, imposing design. Visually looked quite similar to him. Like facial structure-wise, you could tell they have siblings.
Yes.
But in this, she's not really a character at all. So I can't remember if she's going to come into play or if she was in Dark Victory, which was
suspect. That's about it so far. Like, this is a two-parter.
Yeah.
And it definitely plays it up as a two-parter because so far we've only had 3 murders?
Yeah. This is like a year-long thing. Like I've said, there's this holiday killer going around killing mobsters on holidays. So far we've had Halloween, we've had Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year's Eve.
Yes, so we've had 4 killings.
Although one of them, I think the Thanksgiving one, was just like a massacre.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Mobsters for you,
Yeah, that's right, because it was the Triad Massacre.
Yeah. So, I'm going to watch the second one, of course.
Absolutely.
But this one just sort of felt like it was sort of tapping its toes a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely playing the long game here.
With Long Halloween.
Yeah, accidental but intentional. It's definitely a worth to watch, but I think this will do better if you almost watch it back to back.
Yeah.
Because then it'll feel a bit more flowing.
Talking of flowing, I think a fan edit, to sort of cut out those pauses, because they were really...
Oh, yeah, they're just so...
It feels so unnatural, and because we're dealing with cartoon characters, I mean, the designs are pretty great. They would look fantastic. I mean, I really like Jim Gordon's design. I really love like the little cameo from Barbara Gordon, Batgirl.
Yeah.
Favorite character. And Jim Gordon looks fantastic.
Oh, they all do.
They all do. But yeah, it's just a bit... It does feel muted and you kind of expect... I mean, on one hand, it's good they didn't go the stereotype way with the mobsters. But it just does feel quite lifeless at times, and that was really quite... It was really sapping my enjoyment, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it was dragging its feet a little bit. But mind you, that's a genuine mystery.
Yeah. I think if you had the characters actually like talking over each other and sort of interacting and being more... Carmine Falcone blows up at his son and sort of tells him all this stuff, and it just feels so...
Out of place.
Oh, no. Well... Yeah, actually, come to think of it, I don't think the sort of rivalry between his son and him was really properly set up until that scene.
Yeah.
And then it sort of feels like, oh, we've got to have this here now because I guess the comic...
Conflict.
Yeah, whereas it felt more sort of like deeply ingrained within the comic itself, or at least it did when it happened in the comic for me.
I mean, they tried their best to show that there was a strained father-son relationship, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so lifeless, and I sort of think the actor they could have had to play Falcone could have been a bit more big and bombastic, because you're working with these quite sort of stilted character animations, and you sort of need to bring life to them. When Troy Baker shows up as the Joker, when he's playing the other character, the other mobster, they've got the life to him. It's like he's a voice actor. He knows how to bring life to these characters. Design-wise as well, yeah, it is completely different. I did wish it was the Catwoman that was, the purple suit with the big ears.
The big ears.
Could have worked. Even... I mean, the Joker in that comic is so out there. But he's got, like, that quiff of hair, and they didn't even give him a quiff. He's just sort of got these weird, like, ringlets at the front. It's... Why not go all the way? Was it too hard to animate? It could have really livened it up. But, yeah, it's interesting.
It is. I mean, when he is on screen, he definitely steals the show because, Troy Baker, as you said, voice actor, knows what he's doing, and definitely takes this role and gives it his own, but I think he's getting too much direction of give it the old Hamill flair.
Yeah. Yeah. But him, Jensen Ackles, and Josh Duhamel are really fantastic.
Killing it.
Yeah, really good. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes. We'll probably be back in a few weeks' time to discuss it when it does come out.
I think the trailer for part 2 is out at the moment. I just am unsure on whether or not I'm getting myself confused with that or the Batman 66 animated films that they did with Adam West.
This is a lot better than the Killing Joke film, and that had Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill behind it.
Which is unfortunate,
Yeah, it's purely down to quality. I mean, while this one is a bit slow and drags at times and bored me a bit, it's better when it's good.
Yes.
Than what the Killing Joke ended up being. Because that was sort of the old style. It was just sort of generic character designs, and sort of the characters were... There was no attention to care and detail. And
it was them trying to adopt the style, but not doing so well. Yeah. And that's one of the big issues that animation will always have. It can never truly replicate what the comics looked like.
I think they could have with this, but it would have been too far out of their wheelhouse. A small criticism, actually, is one thing I've noticed with these films is when they do guns, they're hand cannons. They're not hand guns, they're cannons. They're like, got all this power behind them, and it kind of feels a bit... Yeah, it's quite out of place, it feels. Because it's showed up in other animated films I've noticed as well. Sometimes it works, other times it sort of felt a bit like this is too much for the scene here. But yes, that's our review discussion of Batman The Long Halloween Part 1 animated movie. based upon the classic comic book of the same name. Part 2 will be out in a few weeks, and we'll probably come back and talk about that.
He's hoping.
We also talked about Black Widow, the latest installment in the Avengers series, starring Scarlett Johansson. General consensus there, pretty good, maybe a bit late, it would have been appreciated to come out earlier. I mean, obviously COVID happened, but even a few years before then would have been really more resonant. But still good. Interesting twist. Would have been fun to see the traditional, but
who knows?
Thematically resonant to what they were trying to go for. But anyway, I'm Royce.
And I'm Joshua.
We'll see you next time. Bye for now.